It takes care of the stomach for nearly all Papua New Guineans and the pockets of some. It's rice, and the debate continues. Nearly 98% of rice consumed in the country is imported. And for those behind the industry, it's lucrative. So who benefits, or who should? Now there are calls for the government to revisit the national rice policy. Mark Kayok reports.
Rice has become a household staple food in Papua New Guinea, but it is yet to become an important food crop in the country's agriculture. The main problem has been inconsistent government policy, which is threatening to derail the country's quest for national self-sufficiency in rice supply. There has been concerted effort by successive governments to promote rice production, especially by smallholder rice farmers throughout the country. But PNG import still accounts for nearly 98% of rice demand. That means rice crops has not been sufficiently produced and distributed in the country. The very low levels of rice production has created a supply gap. This has resulted in huge potential for a lucrative rice import business in Papua New Guinea. The concern now is who gets the license and the quota to import rice into PNG, and what potential impact it will have on the economy and the development policy. Most agriculture products are imported as duty-free without any restrictions. In terms of rice alone, being the most consumed and staple food in the country, it should not be imported with quotas or tax. The National Research Institute is the country's leading think tank on public policies and development-related issues. NRI is of the view that inconsistency in the government policy is causing imbalance with the trader and the domestic rice industry. NRI noticed that the change of policy by government to start introducing tax on rice may be seen as a breach to the World Trade Organization agreements.
Yeah, I think the rules that is now being breached, the WTO rules, is that there's supposed to be some flexibility and the freedom, the free trade, without any encumbrances, without any quotas, unless it is absolutely necessary. But I don't know how somebody can be convinced that importing rice is absolutely necessary for PNG.
The government's proposed introduction of the quota system is part of the national rice policy aimed at promoting and boosting local rice production to achieve self-sufficient and food security. Rice imports into PNG are not subject to quota according to the General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade. The consequences are severe. The country's economy will also feel the pinch of significant impacts. NRI highlighted that allocating greater import quota share with free import duties, tax concession and preferential treatment to a single investor sets a dangerous precedent. It will have detrimental impact on local rice growers, suppliers and the consumers.
Of course, there are a lot of economic implications. One of them, the basic one that people are concerned about, is on the consumer. Once you have a monopoly who is dictating what to charge in the market and how much to bring in, there will be price distortions, and the monopolists can charge whatever price they want. And again, there will be no choice. You only have one person to deal with mainly. So consumer has no choice. At the same time, you pay a lot of higher price for the product. I think on that line, there's also the effect of investor confidence. You see, we don't have, when these kind of policies come in, there's no consistency. We are already used to free trade, no quotas, no duty on rice. All of a sudden, there's a talk of introducing some regulations and taxes. So that causes investors to be scary. So they'll want to say, okay, let's wait and see what happens.
A competitive market is good for an efficient outcome and allocation of economic resources. But the government's proposed import quota allocation system will frustrate competition and create an inefficient rice market in the country. NRI wants the government to allow free trade to be implemented in line with the World Trade Agreements. The government should focus on removing barriers to the growth of a competitive rice market rather than supporting established rice industries and those yet to be established industries that unfairly competes against existing vibrant private rice firms in the market.
I think on the issue of rice policy and any other trading goods for that matter, especially the food items, really it's supposed to be the rules of free trade is what we need to consider. There should be no restrictions, quantitative restrictions for that matter, or tax restrictions. So if we go ahead with the rice policy that is bringing in quotas and taxes on rice, and yet another policy of the same government is trying to say that we are removing quotas, we are removing the taxes, then there's inconsistency in the way we are approaching the same issue in the same government. So that's why it has to be withdrawn, and we see if it aligns with the trade policy.
While the issue is still being debated and discussed, recent research revealed that PNG is still far from cultivating large-scale commercial farming. Among other factors, the high capital costs of establishing irrigated rice farms and the high production costs per ton remain severe constraints to the sustainable development of PNG's rice industry.